So I'm here with Eric. Eric, the one question I ask everyone is, what made you join the military? What years were you in, and what was your MOS and kind of a overall job that you handled while you were in?
Okay. So back in 1996, long before most people were probably, thinking about joining the military, Eric jumped into college, was kind of gonna run that route, and I wound up dropping out. I wound up having life kick me square in the teeth. I made horrible decisions as a young teenager, and I actually ended up homeless. And in Michigan, where I'm from, it gets cold in the winter. And so I was walking down the street one day, and a Marine Corps recruiter pulled up next to me and said, "Hey, man, do you want to ride?" I accepted, obviously, and the rest is history. I wound up in the Marine Corps back in 1996, went in about March. So we met in January. I was in by March. I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps, and I got out. The grass was always green on the other side. I went through TAPS.
Yep.
It was garbage in the 90s. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was then on my second marriage. I had 4 kids. So I was 23, married, divorced, remarried with 4 kids, and out of the service. Still making very good decisions in my young 20s. I failed miserably in the civilian world. I realized I had found a love in the military. And about that time, 9/11 happened. I dropped everything I was doing. I went back to the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps told me to pound sand. We don't take prior service. I said, okay, cool. I walked next door to the Army recruiter, and I was like, hey, look, man, I'm a well-trained infantryman. Like, I'm ready to rock and roll. They jumped on it. I shipped, and the rest is almost 20 years later. I retired this past June as an infantryman after 24 and a half years, 2 branches of service. And so now I'm where I sit now.
Nice. Well, first off, congratulations on your retirement. And
Thank
I
you.
always love talking to grunts. Makes me feel a little more at ease that I can not watch my language. So crazy. So you did the whole thing. You got to retirement. I mean, regardless, I feel like you probably knew when you went back in and joined the Army that you were going to make a career out of it, right? Just because you said you had that love for the military. Even then, when you were 10 years in, 15 years in, did you start thinking about what you were going to do after? Or were you just kind of playing it by ear and figuring once you retired, you were going to retire, grow that beard out, relax?
I will tell you that I did not think, this is the truth. I did not think about retirement. I did not think about ending my career and moving on to the civilian world until I made the decision to drop my packet.
Got it.
I was in love with my job. I was afforded an opportunity I spent a lot of years in reconnaissance platoons. So I got to do a lot of really cool stuff and go around with a lot of cool people and do really weird things in foreign lands. I was able to be a drill sergeant. I have been able to be a first sergeant in a basic training company. I've been able to be a first sergeant in a line company and go to Afghanistan with a company. I've been able to do a lot of really, really cool things. And so I didn't think about it until they gave me a headquarters company as a first sergeant. I had 327 bubbas. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
I don't want to do this anymore. I had always had a 70-30 rule as a leader. And that was I spent 70% of the time with my guys and 30% of my time with a computer. And I made that my rule. And when I became an HHC first sergeant, I realized that rule had to go out the window because I could not spend that much time with people because I was so focused on a computer. And then I saw my future as a sergeant major, and I thought, you know what, Eric, you've done enough. And so I had always told myself that I would know it was time to retire when I stopped having fun. And that was the day I stopped having fun. And so I went to my boss and I was like, hey man, I'm really sorry, but here's my retirement. and much like a lot of people in the military, once you tell somebody you are exiting the military, you're done.
Perfect. So without trying to stop your story too much, right? So that's a well-known thing, I think, amongst, E3s and E4s that do 4 years. Pretty much, yeah, once you tell your platoon sergeant or something like, hey, yeah, I'm not re-enlisting, I'm getting out, that relationship kind of breaks off and it's like, okay, well, good luck, but we can't dedicate more time to you really because you're getting out. We need to work on your replacement, work on the new guys coming up. It's very interesting to hear that that's similar once you get to the E7, E8, E9, E9 realm. That same thing. Even if you've done 20 years or whatever, you're still getting out. Sorry, but
Absolutely. I got a phone call last weekend from a client. Obviously, I'm not going to name names, but he is a nominative sergeant major. That means he works for a general. Okay. I think he's at the 2-star level. Okay. He called me very concerned because he said, Eric, I dropped my retirement packet, and the other nominative sergeant majors, the senior officers, like, I can't get anybody on the phone. Like, I'm not getting, this is a dude who's done 29 years in the military, is in charge of thousands of people.
right.
The minute he dropped his retirement packet.
I understand it because it's right. Especially once you hit those higher echelons, I understand that it's very close knit, right? How many, like you said, how many E9s are there at that level? But at the same time, it just seems insane to me, because I don't care if you, from day one of going to boot camp, you're planning on doing, 36 years and becoming Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, or if you're going to do 4 years. Everyone's getting out eventually. I don't care who you are. No one is spending the rest of their life. So it just seems insane to me that that's still there. I'm never going to understand it, obviously, because I didn't do that amount of time. But you would just think that there would be much more of not even a mentor-mentoree role there, but just like a general, hey, you gave 26 years. I'm going to help you out any way I can, because everyone pays it back, right? I think that's why we're having this conversation, is even when people get out, there's still people there who care. It's just, how do you get the word out to them, and how do you kind of make the connections? Interesting. Okay. So you put in your packet, you're getting ready to retire. What was your thoughts then about what you were going to do after?
Eric's plan, honestly, brother, was I was going to move to Florida. I was going to wear board shorts and flip-flops. I didn't care if I bartended or ran a surf shop, or I didn't care what I did, but I was going to a beach because I still have that Marine Corps in my blood, and I still love the water.
Right.
So location, right? So this is one of the things I coach my veterans on. We've got, for how many ever years you served, either the Marine Corps, the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, the Coast Guard, somebody told you what your core values were, right? When you separate from the military, you have a unique opportunity to set your own core values. And they're going to look different. They may not be integrity or selfless service or any of these other things. They might be work-life balance. It might be finances, because I've got 6 little crumb snatchers at the house and I have got to make a certain amount of money to maintain my family's livelihood. Right. It might be, I want a certain level of management, or I want a C-suite job, or I want to work blue collar. You're going to be, or I have to be in Pennsylvania because my parents aren't doing well and that's where I have to be. There are going to be all kinds of things that you have to prioritize, and you get to set those rules. And so I had set my rules. My number one was location. That's what I wanted. I wanted the panhandle of Florida somewhere. I wanted the Gulf of Mexico. And what I started to discover is, well, that's not even fair. That's not fair. What was thrown down my throat by this organization was, I have more to offer than that. And my regional director, when I was a client at Still Serving Veterans, pulled me aside and started talking to me about volunteering. And then he talked me into kind of a DoD skill bridge. We call it, in the Army, we call it the CSP program, or CSP Career Skills Program, internship with Still Serving Veterans. Got it. And so immediately my priorities changed, because location was no longer my priority, but giving back and paying it forward. Brian Arrington and I are very good friends. Brian's the CEO and founder of Vets to Industry. And if you ever get a chance to get him to talk to him, you need to talk to that guy. Try not to hold it against him. He's an Air Force vet, but he's definitely worth a talk. He's got a very cool story. As a matter of fact, he and our stories are very similar. But one thing that Brian and I have talked about a whole bunch of times is that, and the reason we're both sitting where we're sitting with nonprofits is because, for 24 and a half years, I served. And in that 24 and a half years, I led a lot of young Marines and the young soldiers exit the military under my charge. What I did not tell them is that there are a lot of veteran nonprofits out there. There are a lot of agencies out there that can help them. What I did not know is that there are 40,000 of them in the United States. I had no clue. So out of ignorance, not out of malice, but out of ignorance, I can't tell you how many people I let exit the military without that knowledge, without knowing where to go, without knowing how to get the help, without knowing where to ask. And I can't tell you how many of those people, because I don't know how many there are, and I haven't kept in contact with them. I don't know how many of them are underemployed, unemployed, homeless, or God forbid, a part of the 22 a day.
Right.
And so this is my way of making sure that I'm a small, albeit a very small cog in a very nasty machine. This is my way of stepping in and not just, I don't have anything against people doing 22 push-ups a day. I think awareness is great, but I needed to do more than that.
Yep.
Right. So that's why I stepped into this space. And so that's how my priorities changed from board shorts and flip-flops and beach to, you know, getting my hands dirty and getting in the ring for our veterans, our brothers and sisters in arms, and making sure that they know where to go to get the assistance.
That's awesome. I mean, I think like you, there's a lot of veterans who are thinking that same way, where I think you see it more and more now. You're seeing active duty, you know, senior enlisted, senior leadership on LinkedIn participating, getting a lot of this information, and then hopefully they're disseminating it to, you know, their junior enlisted, their junior officers who are transitioning out. Because like you said, I don't think it's malice. I don't think it is so much of that, this person's getting out, so I'm just done with them. You know, I don't have time for them. I really think it is, there's not enough information. People don't realize, like you said, DoD Skill Bridge is out there, all these other organizations, all these great nonprofits that are out. That, I mean, really, if you take a couple hours and you do some research on LinkedIn or some of the other job platforms, you can find an insane wealth of knowledge. The hundreds of people who are dedicating, you know, this is their job, but also their spare time. This is something that they have a passion for, because veterans are going to take care of each other at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's a shame that it's taken so long. And I think we're still not there yet, right? Obviously there's still a huge issues with homelessness, with alcoholism, drug abuse, suicide in the veteran community. And a lot of that does probably stem from not being secure once you get out, whether that's financially, not just having a plan or a purpose, which I definitely want to go back and talk about how you said you need to have your kind of core values when you get out. But I do think we are slowly trending in the right direction, and you see it all the time with you know, the partnering of higher militaries, vet industries, all these different organizations that are working together. So it's exciting. It's great to hear that that's your story, because that's kind of why I started doing it, is because I don't understand how I found all this knowledge really quick, in terms of all the people that are out there willing to help, but people who are still active duty have never heard of most of this stuff. Yeah. And I don't know if it's something that needs to happen with TAPS, where they say, hey, we need a 2-hour session in TAPS that says, look at all of these things, like DoD, all these organizations. I didn't know DoD Skill Bridge existed until a couple months ago.
Right.
But again, it's just, how do we get the word out there?
And that's interesting, because the DoD Skill Bridge and like the CSP in the Army, those are TAP programs.
I don't know.
Those are TAP programs. I went through SFL. I went through Soldier for Life TAP in order to do my CSP to work here at Still Serving Veterans. I had to have a packet approved to the TAP manager.
Now, I'm someone who's very skeptical, and I would say I'm a pessimist in the way I would look at E4, E5 getting out of the Marine Corps, particularly in the infantry, I would say, where, and I brought this up to, you know, advocates of DoD Skill Bridge and some of these other processes before, about saying, when I was getting out, 2-5, my unit was about ready to deploy to Afghanistan.
Yep.
And if I had gone and said, hey, I'm not going with you to Afghanistan, I'm actually going to be getting out of the military, do you mind if I take 6 months to go do an internship somewhere? Without naming names and who the command was at the time, the response that I would have gotten, probably from the company level all the way to the battalion staff level, I don't think that would have happened. But again, I didn't know about it. I don't think anyone, to be honest with you, I don't think anyone of my peers knew about it. And maybe if I had a really great plan and I had you know, this is my plan, this is what I'm going to do, this is the company I want to work with, maybe it could have happened. I just feel like I'm hoping things are different nowadays. I just know back in 2012, I don't think that would have been an option realistically.
And they're not. And I'm going to tell you, this is, I'll speak kind of from my own foxhole, right? My own foxhole, what I do now and where I'm at, and kind of looking back at my career. And I'll tell you honestly, brother, what you're seeing in the military is you're seeing the results of a 20-year wartime military.
Right.
If we weren't in Afghanistan and Iraq for the last 20 years, right, and we were a peacetime, you know, element, a peacetime military for the last 20 years, we would have evolved. Those things, I think, would have happened. I think that would have been a real thing, because we would have had so many people exiting the military at ETS dates and things, not as many retirees, because the retention need, you know what I mean? We're not
right.
at a war. I have to say, I think that as much as I want to blame chains of command, I understand readiness. I understand operational readiness. I understand having to stay on top of the guys and gals that are going to be going to the sandbox, the guys and gals that are going to be going on the float, the guys, you know what I mean? I understand that. And so I have a hard time blaming chains of command, although I love the fact that we are getting some of that to trickle down to some of our, senior sergeants major, our senior officers, and they're understanding the process and hopefully throwing it back at the guys that are still in the seat.
Yeah.
I think honestly, and the problem that you're seeing, I think with SFL TAP is that the TAP process, and it doesn't matter which branch of service you talk about, the TAP process is contractually driven, like everything else in the military. When you talk about a TAP manager who's a DoD civilian dealing with a contracted company, right, to teach this stuff,
right,
in order to start talking about other nonprofits, they have to have a contractual agreement. It's the way the government works. And so for them to contract with 40,000 veteran nonprofits to put the word out is difficult.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, if I'm being honest, 40,000 veteran nonprofits, not all of them are relevant. Not all of them are reputable, right? And I don't have anybody in mind. I'm not thinking of anybody, but I know that they exist.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that the government's being very careful. But what I love is that we've got entities like V2I, like InVets, like Still Serving Veterans, like you doing a podcast or an interview, and just putting it out there.
Right.
I think that's incredible. I think that's exactly what we need to do, but it's what keeps our veteran nonprofits in business. We fill a space. We need people to stand in the gap.
Yeah.
Right? TAPS isn't going to do it. TAPS can't do it because of contractual restrictions. Chain of commands aren't going to do it because of operational readiness requirements. So we need guys like you. We need guys like Brian. We need guys like Jerry Young or Herb Thompson or Bruce. We need those guys to stand in the gap and say, okay, I'm here. How can I answer your questions? What do you need? Right. Oh, I know that guy. I know that lady. I know this organization. And that's what we do. And I think that's what we are going to take care of ourselves. And I think you said it right. Nobody takes care of us like us.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't care what the mission is, or if it's, again, if it's someone from the Air Force who did 28 years, or a Lance Corporal who did 4 years, I don't care. I'm going to connect with you. I'm going to do what I can to take care of you. And I know everyone echoes that same sentiment in the veteran community. So I'm interested to see what's next, because it does keep getting better, it seems like, or maybe getting better is not the correct term, but there's more optics into it, whether for good or for bad, because of obviously everything that happens with veteran suicide. But even beyond that, every day you see there's veteran entrepreneurs popping up that are doing incredible things. Yep. Fortune 500 companies where, the C-class individuals, most of them are veterans or have some kind of tie to the veteran community. So it's getting out there, it's getting better. And I think it's just having conversations like these where, what's the problem? Where is the disconnect? And I think you highlighted it, right? So
yeah, what I love, and this, this COVID pandemic has been a horrible. It has absolutely been a horrible experience for our entire country, right? So many people negatively affected, so many people personally affected. But I will tell you, I think it has come at a time that the veteran community needed it the most, because I think that we have had and we have taken advantage of an opportunity to show the rest of the country what it looks like to band together.
Right.
What it looks like to stand arm in arm and say, I understand we're under a pandemic. I understand that people are losing their employment. I understand that we've got veterans that are struggling, but we're going to show you what it means to take care of each other and to be good stewards and good neighbors. Right. And I'll brag on my team. I want to take 5 seconds to highlight my team.
Go for it.
Since January of this year, we've got 423 veterans hired. Those men and women have got over $19 million of combined wages and income. And that's through COVID. July, in the height of COVID, we had 87 veterans hired. We can do this. We as a country can do it if we learn how to band together instead of fighting each other.
Which we,
you know what I'm saying?
Which we're very good at, unfortunately.
Yeah, we're great at it. But we as a veteran community, we as a melting pot, we can show people how to bridge those gaps and how to stand in the gap. Again, stand in the gap for each other. And dude, it's a horrible pandemic, but it's provided us an incredible opportunity as a very small community. Less than 1% of the American population will ever raise their right hand, don that uniform, and serve their country. And the 1% can show the 99% exactly what it looks like to survive something like this.
Oh yeah, man, I love it. So going back in your company, especially through COVID, how do you connect with transitioning personnel or veterans? Is it mostly through LinkedIn at this point, or do you actually engage with any of the military bases or anything like that?
So we are positioned right outside of Fort Benning, Georgia.
Okay.
So home of the infantry for the Army. They call it the Maneuver Center of Excellence now because they've brought the armor and the cav guys in. But no, it's always going to be the home of the infantry for me. But no, we get a small population from them. It was really hard through COVID because TAP shut down, so we weren't seeing a lot of foot traffic. Plus, we shut our doors, right?
Right.
We shut our doors because I've got a staff I've got to protect. And so we did everything over our phones. We did it over our phone, Zoom, whatever we could do. It did provide us an opportunity to grow as an organization. There was a lot of just walk-in traffic that we had before this. And once we realized that there were so many more people out there that needed help, we've been able to partner with other TAP programs, the Air Force TAP programs and Coast Guard TAP programs. And so we've started teaching our workshops instead of doing them in person on Fort Benning. We're now teaching them on Zoom and getting people from all over the country. Brother, I've got clients in England and Bahrain right now.
That's awesome.
You know
awesome.
What I mean? So a lot of my stuff is on LinkedIn. I love going to the search bar. I simply type in transitioning military and go to the people.
Yep.
And dude, I scroll down and it's connect. And for those of you who listen to this, who've seen my message, I've got a very standard blurb that I put out to introduce myself. But that's in the interest of being able to reach as many people as quickly as I can. Right. Besides, my hands are old and full of arthritis, and I don't feel like typing, 300 times a day.
Right.
Hey, my name is, So, but I'm telling you, man, that little search bar on the LinkedIn site is such a powerful tool.
Mm-hmm.
Such a powerful tool for those of us that are looking for employment or looking to connect or looking for assistance. Such a powerful tool. You can type in just about anything you want.
Yeah, I mean
find it.
That's how I found you, right? Is slowly when I started doing this, connecting with a few people that are working in the veteran advocacy space. And then it is just like, we're a very tight-knit community. I feel like, especially on LinkedIn, you see it where if someone is posting an event or a job opening or a resume or anything, exactly, it is rapid fire where it's going to get to everyone who's kind of following along that same path. So are you more, you wait till you see that transitioning veteran kind of hashtag on someone's post and you reach out and just try and say like, hey, do you have a plan? What are you looking to do? Or are you more waiting for the veteran or the transitioning service member to reach out to you and ask or give you kind of what they're doing?
Listen, man, I was never a backseat leader. I was never a reactive leader. So I am very much proactive. I get out there and my rule is I get 15 minutes in the morning. So if my office opens at 08:30, at 08, I'm in the seat. By 8:15, I'm searching for veterans.
Got it.
I'm sending out connection requests because I don't know what their plans are.
And speaking for myself personally, as a 21-year-old getting out, knowing I didn't have a plan, I would have felt too embarrassed, I feel, to reach out to someone and be like, hey,
yep.
Oh, you did 27 years. Look, I have no idea what I'm doing, but do you mind helping me out and kind of getting me in the right direction? Which I guarantee there's a lot of young veterans who feel the same way.
And that's the part that I've got to figure out too. Now that's a demographic I don't think I'm catching nearly enough of. And I think that's because we as a young, I can't say I'm not young. I have kids your age. We have a population of young soldiers, young Marines, young airmen, young seamen that don't know and won't get on LinkedIn.
Right.
And so, I don't know that I'm the guy that's going to jump on IG or Snapchat and start putting stuff out. I don't think I'm the face that people want to see, but we need the young guys to jump on. We need young representatives to get into some of those other social media platforms, right? And start getting out there and getting the word out to at least get on LinkedIn. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, look, I got it. That's a really cool selfie. I need you to get on LinkedIn and start talking to some of these senior guys about a plan. When we all were young and we all went into our military organizations for the first time, I'm hoping, I know I was blessed enough to have it for myself, but I'm hoping that somebody kind of took us under their wing, right? We had that senior person, whether it was a staff sergeant or whether it was a sergeant or whether it was a corporal or it was a master sergeant. We had somebody put their arm over us and be like, hey man, look, don't do this, don't step there, step there. We had somebody looking out. We need to make sure that these young kids are getting pointed to us old guys so that we can do that for them, right? So they're getting ready to, and I tell my veterans all the time, is you're getting ready to cross that linear danger area, right? That LDA. we're the ones that are pulling security now.
I
We're
love
going to
it.
bring you on this side of the fence. We're pulling security. We've got your back. I just need you to concentrate on building a plan.
Yeah.
But we got to figure out a way to get to those younger kids.
It's interesting. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with that, right? It's almost like LinkedIn is looked at, I think, by a lot of younger people, especially like 21 to 25-year-olds getting out of the military. LinkedIn is like the old people's Facebook. That's how they look at it, right? And I was probably guilty of that. I mean, LinkedIn wasn't a thing when I got out, but I know that idea is out there. And like you said, it's Instagram and Snapchat.
Right.
But I would just think there's a lot of young veterans out there and young transitioning service members who they realize they're not as prepared as they want to be. And like you said, whether they're just assuming I'm just going to get out, go to school, collect BAH, and then I've got 3 years to figure out what I'm going to do. But I know there's a huge portion of those that want to connect, want to be in some of these groups and some of these conversations about what can I actually be doing to put myself ahead. Because the same thing happens in 10 years. They're going to realize, holy shit, all those opportunities I had, and I just wasted them.
Yep.
Yep. So again, it's not hand holding, but how do we push people a little bit in the back a little firmer and say, that's great. There's resources here. Take advantage of them now. Whether it's things like even just, I know tons of young men and women who have gotten out and they don't even have their VA, physical set up, don't have any of their disability process going. And I tell them, like, this is potentially millions of dollars of your life right now that at least, I don't care if you're not even going to claim anything, go in there, at least tell them you have service connected disabilities. Because in 30 years, when your knees start killing you and you can't get up in the morning, you're going to regret not going in there and getting that paperwork done. And I think that there's a little bit of that, like, okay, old man, like, yeah, thanks. Appreciate the advice. But it's just, I think it's just getting people to realize, no, this actually is for your own good. And once people go through it and they see the benefit, they're the next generation that helps the next round of young men and women getting out.
And I think that's it right there. I think what we need to find, buddy, is we need to seek out these young kids that are doing it, right? That are on LinkedIn, the 21, 22, 25-year-old kids that are on LinkedIn, that are doing the right thing. Those are the ones we need as advocates.
Yeah, big time.
Right? So we have these demographics, and every demographic, every age group has got, like, their generational, like, I don't know, spokesperson or their generational person that's like out there, advocating for them. And we need a couple of these young ETSing sergeants or these young ETSing corporals to remember that they were taught how to be a leader. And that's something you want to carry forward.
I think it's lining up really well right now because we are transitioning slowly but surely. We're transitioning out of, OEF, OIF deployments, where a lot of the sergeants who are getting out now who maybe did 7 or 8 years, they're combat vets. So, they're juniors and their peers look up to them. They're the ones, I think, because they've kind of been put up on a mantle at this point, right? We're not doing a ton of combat deployments anymore. They're the ones who, when they get out, I think veterans would look to and be like, okay, this guy has his shit together, or this girl has her shit together and she's doing it. Look at all the stuff she's doing. Okay. It's just like, I would follow them in the military. I don't want to look like a, a bag of ass as a civilian. So I'm going to keep doing the same thing. It's a little bit of peer pressure, I think, right? Like,
that's absolutely what it is.
Ruck up, get your shit together and keep moving forward. So it's just figuring out how to do that now.
Yeah. And like I said, I would love to help, but like, I'm not the guy. You don't want to see this old face. You know what I mean? Nobody's going to listen to the old man anymore.
I love it. That's awesome. Look, this was really cool, really great interview. I appreciate you being so open with me. And I'm glad every time I speak with someone who I've connected with, we're all saying the same stuff. We all know what needs to get done, and thankful for everyone who's in the community and is putting the effort out there. I'd love for you to plug yourself, your LinkedIn, and also your company again. Point anyone, if you were speaking right now to a 21-year-old who's thinking about getting out or getting out, kind of what would you tell them? Where would you send them?
Okay. So again, I work for Still Serving Veterans. We're a veteran nonprofit. We've been in existence for about 14 years. And here's how I'm going to speak to the young guys. For the last 7 years, we have been primarily funded by the Call of Duty endowment. So every time you play that video game, their endowment process, their philanthropy is what's funding primarily funding our organization. Boeing and a couple of other donors are out there, but the Call of Duty endowment is our primary funder. What they pay us to do is to ensure that we are good stewards of the money that they give us, that we're working with veterans, and that we're ensuring veterans work through the transition process and find that meaningful employment, right? And so when I'm sitting with my young veterans, when I'm sitting, especially with you young kids, right, the biggest thing is understanding what you bring to the table. You know, we talked earlier about that 1% versus that 99%. The problem is that the 99% cannot relate to what we've been through. They can't relate to what we've done or where we've been. And they certainly don't know what we bring to the table because we haven't learned how to translate. Every one of us wind up remember standing on the yellow footprints at MCRD San Diego, or, you know, at Camp Lejeune. We remember getting off the bus at basic training, and we remember the drill sergeant or the drill instructor that stood there and said, okay, little buddy, what can we do to be more like you? No, that didn't happen because that person wasn't there. They expected us to transition immediately into being a Marine or into being a soldier or into being an airman. That same mentality is on the other side of the gate too. The civilian world is not there. The onus is not on them to become more like us, to understand us. We're the 1%. The onus is on us to transition and translate what we've done into civilianese so that Jane and John public, as they're interviewing us, can understand what it is we really bring to the table. Those young sergeants and corporals have led men and women, have been in control and in responsibility of millions of dollars of equipment. They bring things to the table that your average civilian can't do, regardless of a degree, right? And so understanding how to translate, how to say, okay, I did this, this is my military jargon, this is what it lines up against in the civilian world, and then doing that translation, that's something that my organization does. And
That's
there
awesome.
are all kinds of organizations out there that do it. Hire Our Heroes is a great resume. I'll plug them because I want to show that we're all on the same team, right? Like, we all do what we're supposed to do as far as that translation piece, but that's the biggest piece, is learning how to translate. And then the other thing I would tell you, buddy, is that I like to fish, right? So I like fishing analogies, right? I have definitely caught a bluegill on a hook with no bait. That has definitely happened. But I've definitely lost a nice salmon with the perfect, with the perfect jig, because I didn't know how to set a hook. So when it comes to the resume, that resume is bait. It's a small piece. You can land a really good job without a resume through the right networking. But you can also lose the best job you ever had with the best resume you've ever written if you don't have the other technical skills.
Right.
If you don't know how to network, if you don't know how to interview, if you don't know how to target a resume, if you don't know how to do some of the technical things, you can lose that great job. So it's much more than just a resume. There's an entire process that needs to be learned. And our young folks, and even our old, especially us old folks, need to understand that process. We need to understand that there's technical skills out there that we have to learn. And so, yeah, man, if you want to push anybody towards SSV, I'm going to bounce them off me and send them to everybody else I know. I don't face palm. I don't stiff arm. I don't hold and keep, right? I help, and then I push them out to other folks and make sure they're getting all the assistance that they can get.
That's right, man. Well, we're definitely going to obviously push everyone towards you and there. I love one real quick thing about what you said about taking that military experience, and then we have to be the onus of control is on us to adapt to. Now we're no longer in the military, right?
Yeah.
I had a conversation with someone recently who said, like, yeah, they were a squad leader, combat deployments, and infantry. Said, okay, but what do I put on my resume? Like, I know how to write a 5-paragraph order, and I know how to patrolling tactics and all these things. And I was just like, dude, you're thinking about it the whole wrong way. Don't even try and write it like you were in the military. You were HR. You had, 12 people of all different backgrounds, cultures, mixes, different ages that you led through.
Diverse and cross-functional teams.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, like, as you said, okay, everyone had everyone had some NVGs on them. All right, well, that's a couple $100,000 in there of complete oversight and accountability that you had over a 10-month period. And there's a misconception, a huge one, I think, where people try and take their military career and what they've done and try and, like, again, if you do that and you're trying to say you were a squad leader and you're putting that on your resume, I think you're perfectly lined up to work in law enforcement. That's great. But if you don't want to work in law enforcement, you need to figure out a way to translate that into an office or whatever you want to do.
I cannot tell you how frustrated I get. And I hate it because I never know if the person I'm talking to has a family lineage of law enforcement. So I don't want to offend anyone, but every time I talk to them, an infantryman or a tank crewman or some kind of a combat arms MOS, and they're like, well, I could probably be a security guard or a cop.
That's what I said when I got
And I'm
out.
like, no, there's so much more that you bring to the table. It's a matter of learning a new language.
Right.
That's it. Learn a new language and you've got to look at your career from a different angle, right? We got to step out of the military angle and look at it from a different angle. My old man taught me everything I ever learned about it when it comes, or he taught me through analogies, right? And my old man, one time, I'll never forget, he looked at me and he said, Eric, there's a reason that the windshield is larger than the rearview mirror.
I like it.
You know what I'm saying? Like, your military career is in the rearview mirror. It's what's in the past. It's there to remind you of the dangers that you've already been through. It's there to remind you of lessons you've already learned. It's there to laugh when you remember the funny stuff. It's there to remember the good people. It's there to remember the good lessons. But there's an entire career in life in front of you. And that's what's got to get focused on. And so you can't focus on that 12-inch mirror.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You got to focus on the 5-foot windshield. So, yeah.
I love it, man. This was awesome. Really appreciate it. Again, thank you for your service first off, but also everything you're continuing to do for the veteran space. It's awesome. And I do think we're getting there. We're getting better. It's just going to take some more time and hopefully some more conversations like this and more people doing the work that you're doing is going to help. So.
Well, man, hey, listen, I'm humbled and I'm appreciative that you had me here. Let me know if I can ever do anything for you. I've got your back just as much as I've got everybody else's back, okay?
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. All right. You stay safe, Eric.
All right, man. You do the same.
Take care.
Try and stay warm out there in Southern California.
Yeah, it's rough. All right, bye.
Have a good one, brother.